Wow. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our event with the Home Office today. We'll be starting very, very shortly. But before we do, I'd love to give a bit more of an introduction as to Hackajob, what we do, a bit more about the Home Office and how this event will run today. So we'll wait for a few more people to stream through and we'll start very, very soon. Awesome. Wow, I can see the numbers are definitely growing. So hello, everyone, and welcome to our event, Software Engineering, Why It Matters More Here, in partnership with the Home Office. So I will be the moderator for today's event. My name is Ehi, and I'm the marketing executive here at Hackajob, and I have the pleasure of introducing actually what this event will be about. So as way of an intro to Hackajob, we are a data-driven and engaging recruitment platform operating in the digital sector. So we use key data points to find candidates' jobs uniquely based on their CV and skill sets, ensuring that both candidates and companies can conduct a much more relevant and targeted approach to recruitment. Not only this, but we actually also offer support before and after interviews, as well as offering candidates, to show off your skills as well through coding challenges and project uploads. And we are so proud actually to have this partnership with the Home Office. So we've been working together for a little while now. We've had a few podcasts, some blog posts, and now of course this event as well, which we're really excited for and looking forward to. So to give you a quick flavour of their digital impact, each year their systems support up to 3 million visa applications, checks on 100 million border crossings, up to 7 million passport applications, and much more. So all of this is underpinned by their exceptional work of their engineers, developing and maintaining public services that most of us will use in our lifetime. So a little bit more about the event and the agenda for today. We will first pass over very shortly to Greg, who is the head of software engineering, and he'll talk to us a lot more about the Home Office, what it is they do, and give us a bit more of a background. Then we'll pass over to Sumitra, who is the principal engineer, and she will be talking to us about becoming a successful tech leader. She will then pass over to Ruth, who is a developer, and she'll take us through her career journey experience as well, before passing over to Dan and Amra, who are recruiters at the Home Office, and they will talk to you a bit more about the process. So any of your burning questions, please do get them into the Q&A. So you can ask questions throughout the event, but there will be a dedicated slot at the end where actually they'll be able to answer them in person. So we can cover any unanswered questions here, but I'm sure we'll learn a lot through the event today as well. And we'll also be sharing a survey link with you towards the end of the event to hear what you thought of it. And actually, this is completely anonymous and it only takes a few minutes to complete, but it will really help us going forward as well. So even though the agenda may not exactly, follow everything as shown, I am sure there'll be many great surprises for us as well, but we will finish on time. So a little bit of housekeeping, and this is pretty much the only thing for today. Please don't use the hands up feature. If you have a question, please type your question into the Q&A box, because we'll be able to get round to it much easier this way. So once again, please don't use the hands up feature, as we won't be able to answer questions this way. Please do it via the Q&A section and we'll be able to get round to this towards the end. Right, I think that is more than enough of me speaking. I would love to hand over now to Greg.
Morning, everyone, or actually afternoon. We just ticked over to afternoon, haven't we? Hi, I'm Greg. I'm head of software engineering here at the Home Office. I have been doing this about 6 months or so. And before that, I was a lead engineer here at the Home Office in a team called Shared Tech Products. And that was one of our our aims and our goals, to try and merge some of the duplicate or some of the really similar technologies that we've got here. But I'll touch a little bit more upon that a little bit later when I talk about the digital data and technology principles that we've got. Prior to my lead engineer role here at the Home Office, I came from a background entirely of private sector. I've never worked for a government department before, although I do have a little bit of public sector experience, as you may be able to see if the camera's not cropping off with the police hat behind me. When I was first looking for a new job, now about a year and a half ago, I think it was, I pretty much decided that I was finished with private sector. I started to look at civil service jobs to see what software development roles are available across various government departments. The private sector company that I worked for were pretty much all tiny in comparison to here. I've worked at places where it was 5 people through to 80 people, where the development team was 20. and where the development team was 3. And I've had the managing director setting daily priorities of what lines of code I was supposed to write, with no dedicated QA testing team, no automation at all, just write code and go and install it on things. So if we could go on to the next slide, to give you an overview as to why, maybe 2 more slides actually. So we've got, there we go. Right, this one. There we go. So to give you an overview of why the Home Office and what it is that the Home Office do, we're the lead government department for immigration and passports, drugs, policy, crime, fire, which is something people don't always realize comes in our remit, counterterrorism and policing. And our responsibilities are keeping the United Kingdom safe from the threat of terrorism, reducing and preventing crime, working on the problems caused by illegal drug use. Something somewhat topical at the moment is borders and immigration, issuing passports and visas, supporting all the visible, responsible and accountable policing. And then the area in which I sit and the rest of the people who have joined me today, we sit in the digital part of the Home Office. So the things that you see on here, it's kind of the face or the front line of the Home Office, and is all supported by something we call DDAT, which is Digital Data and Technology. We really like our acronyms here in the Home Office, and hopefully I will remember to explain if I use any by accident. So if we could go on to the next slide, please. If you zoom in on the DDAT part of the Home Office, here's where you'll find me and the people who are with me today. This whole page and all of the boxes on here are DDAT. Now I sit around that kind of top section over there, which says Chief Technology Office. And the likelihood is that most people who would kind of come in on the vast majority of our recruitment processes would sit there too. In this CTO, Chief Technology Office, we have something called Shared Application Services, and that is like our in-house outsourcing team. So we've got quite a push at the moment to bring in all the stuff that historically we would have outsourced to big companies, and we would have paid lots of money. There would have been built, support, maintained by external companies, private sector companies. And we're looking at doing a lot of in-house and bringing all that in-house so that it'll be built, it'll be owned, it'll be run by full-time staff. And we call those civil servants. So if I use that phrase later in the talks, civil servants mean people who work in the Home Office as their full-time kind of full-time role. So SaaS, Shared Application Services, is our in-house way of doing that. And what that means is if one of those portfolios in that square section in the middle, if they want developers, they should no longer go out to some of the big consultancy and development firms. They should now come to SaaS in the CTO, Shared Application Services, in the Chief Technology Office. And that's where we look to provide all our developers from, which is a really great thing for us as developers. This segues nicely into my next topic about what tech we use, because we build lots of products and there is tons of tech. There's opportunities for basically all levels of skill across basically every tech stack you could imagine. Depending on which system you look at and how you squint when you slice the numbers, we've got anywhere between 400 to 4,000 developers in the software engineering profession here at the Home Office. And we're supporting around 600 different systems. And they range from really old legacy critical products, which are older than me and support UK policing and counterterrorism, through to brand new cutting edge technology, and then everything in the middle. Imagine it being a line from old stuff to cutting edge stuff. We have everything all the way across. We've got mainframes running Police National Computer, which is a system that stores and shares criminal records to police and MI5, MI6, GCHQ, National Crime Agency. We have modern slavery reporting systems, child abuse image database, which helps tackle online child sexual abuse, and report systems to report online terrorist materials. The technology that we use to support that is things like Drone CI, it's Jenkins, it's Docker, it's SaaS, probably less as well, using Express, Node, React, TypeScript, Dynamic CRM, everything. You know, we have C#, we have Java, we run things on Kubernetes, Docker, we have DevOps pipelines to release the software. So the great thing about that range of products and all the tech is the range of people. It gives everybody at every level of their career opportunity to work on everything. And then what we're seeing as well at the moment is inside of people's personal lives. You know, everyone's been working remotely as well. And that means taking and being accepting of all of it. Flexibility on location, flexibility on time, being accepting of the fact that there may be a child running into people's meetings. I'm looking at my door there at any point. And animals, if a cat walks in the back of someone's camera shot, I'll probably end up derailing the meeting entirely. And that kind of working environment it's typical of the Home Office. We're working remotely at the moment, looking at our return to the office beginning this week, actually. So we've got entry levels at every point, every level of seniority. We've got emerging talent schemes, digital career development portfolios, people looking to break into software development. And then we've got vacancies for developers and senior developers and lead engineers and principals too. And that SaaS in-house transformation that I mentioned earlier does mean there's limitless possibilities for where a career could take you in the Home Office. We have got a little bit of a video, which I'll introduce to you in a second, that kind of shows some of the real people who are working here and some of the technology that we're working on. But I just really quickly, because I can see the time that I'm running over. Last week was International Women's Day. We want to make sure that we're playing our part in making our organization more inclusive, more representative. So we're doing lots of targeted recruitment. We're doing lots of engagement, lots of events. Last year, we were part of Women at Silicon Roundabout events, helped with the conversation around women in technology. And we're really, really conscious of how important some of these are. And you've got actually 2 of our female developers, engineers, who are going to be talking very shortly, who can tell you some of the really interesting stuff that they're working on. And so you don't have to listen to me for much longer. I kind of just wanted to touch upon that really, really briefly, just to emphasize how important it is that we represent everybody here. So I will do a quick segue into the video that we've got coming up next. So if Hackajob can start to line that video up. We've got some real engineers from our organization on here, including one of the people who are about to start speaking, which is Sumitra, who's one of our principal engineers, talking about the work that they're doing and the impact that they've got delivering services for the public. And then after that video, you're going to hear from one of our software developers, Ruth, on her career journey and being a woman in technology. So that's all for me for the moment, although I'll come back in a little bit towards the end. Hackajob, if you could swap screens to the video. There is a link to a website at the end of this video, just so people are aware. It is not yet live because this is a bit of a sneaky preview into something that's not been launched. Here we go. So it'll be this one in a second. So when you see the URL at the end, that's not yet live, but don't panic too much. It'll be up pretty soon. Thank you.
Wow, seems as though we are having a tiny technical difficulty. We're just about to share again, but with the sound this time. Wow, the suspense. I know we're all very excited.
I was just about to get my drum set out to do drum rolls. There we go.
Victims of modern slavery.
I've worked on systems to help fight crime.
We're setting industry standards for hundreds of products.
I'm protecting national security.
We've built a website to make it easy for first responders to report victims of modern slavery. Each stage of development has involved users. We also look at feedback, analytics, accessibility, and security to continue making improvements. It's nice to know that the code I've written might have made a difference, that I've potentially helped victims of modern slavery.
I'm learning from some of the best developers out there on work that's vital to the public. I've worked on a platform for police to file reports, track and access information. And we're streamlining processes to give them more time to fight crime. I'm helping keep people safe, and that's what motivates me. I've got the best of both worlds here. There's structure, scale and opportunity, with the startup feel of an agile team. And everyone's encouraging me to succeed.
We're on a digital transformation journey, bringing everything in-house to develop, deliver and keep improving public-facing services. It's about fully agile, multidisciplinary working, with a strong end-user focus and real product ownership from inception through to go live. We're using the latest and greatest tools, Kubernetes, Node.js, Java, AWS and more, to make a broad-ranging impact on life. And we're a diverse bunch of people, bringing fresh ideas to set new industry standards. It's an exciting place to be right now.
There's a greater sense of purpose as a developer when you can see the benefits you bring to the user, like my team's work on the Single Intelligence platform, enabling Home Office teams, law enforcement and other agencies to share and access vital intelligence information. This platform helps keep people safe. I'm proud to be part of a strong dev community where we learn from and lean on each other. And I'm even more proud of the work we do together. Because it's not just numbers and reports, it's real impact on real lives.
Wonderful, thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed the video. We'll now pass over to Sumitra, who will tell us actually how it is that she's become a successful tech leader.
Hello. I'm not sure if anyone can hear me. Great. Thanks. I can see my slides on. Afternoon all. I'm Sumitra. I'm a principal engineer here with Home Office. I joined the Home Office in 2017 as a senior developer. My current role involves, among other responsibilities, building engineering teams to help deliver the services and the products needed by the Home Office to serve the public. Today, I'm going to talk about a few tips that I found useful in my journey starting off as a developer to where I am now, and especially with the perspective of a woman in tech. So if some of this talk is especially relevant to women in tech, it's just because I'm very passionate about it. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So before I begin, I just want to highlight what the state of play looks like in terms of women in technology in general in the UK. STEM women has some very interesting figures. I won't try and go through all of them, but I just want to point out a few things. Based on recent UCAS data, 35% of STEM students in higher education in the UK are women. Over the years, since 2015, the number of women in STEM has grown, but the number of men has also risen rapidly. So when looking at percentages, that linear increase doesn't quite show. What's also interesting is the percentages by subject breakdown within STEM. The percentage of women in computer science, engineering, and tech is between 15 to 16%. And then when you take this across to the women in STEM workforce, the picture stays approximately the same, with the same increase in number of women joining, but a larger increase in men, so the percentage doesn't change much. The figure at the bottom shows the percentage of women working as IT professionals. Why am I mentioning this? Why is this relevant? Because it's very important to acknowledge that the gender imbalance in tech still exists, and improving diversity in all aspects is still very much a priority. If you could go on to the next slide, please. So we're all people in tech, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much, but what do we need to focus on as a person in tech? We know that being in technology doesn't mean we're all developers or engineers. There are testers amongst us. There are data scientists, interaction designers, product managers, delivery managers, user researchers, the list is long. What brings us all together is that we all aim to use technology to drive innovation and to build the future. And sometimes what really helps is to just step out of the area that you're used to working in. Maybe that's using your skills in a different area, or maybe just trying to see things from a different perspective, but it will all help to get the bigger picture. So if you're a developer, maybe tinker with another technology in your spare time. That will help you to understand why you prefer one technology over another. Maybe put your design skills to work as a service designer or an interaction designer. But tip number one is look for opportunities to do something slightly different and step out of your comfort zone. One of the things I really enjoy about working here at the Home Office is being part of a wider multidisciplinary product team. As a developer, the focus tends to be on the technical aspects of what we're engineering. So for me, it's fantastic to be able to go along to user research sessions. Initially, I used to go along to take notes, but it helped me to understand how the user found the experience of actually using your service, what they like, what they don't like. And it's a fantastic feeling when you've released a new feature or an improvement to an existing feature and users tell you how useful it's been. And then when they tell you what they don't quite like about it or what it doesn't do for them, then that helps to drive forward improvements with a much better user focus. Next slide, please. Tip number 2, break your own mental glass ceiling. Very often, we hold ourselves back. This may be for various reasons, but quite often is because we feel we can't contribute enough. So can you help another team or another person with your expertise? Maybe be upfront that you might not be able to solve all of it. People value that, and it's surprising how much of a two-way street it can turn out to be. You'll end up learning just by trying to help out, and equally now you've built a new working relationship. Can you take part in a technical forum? Here at the Home Office, we run regular SEGAS workshops to discuss engineering principles, better ways of working, standards that we have to meet. Where there's a mix of experience or a mix of skills, or even when the forum is a mixed bunch where some people know each other, some people don't, it can sometimes be awkward to contribute. So my suggestion is just join in and contribute when you're ready. Perhaps set yourself a goal of being able to contribute just once the first time, and then subsequently increase your own goal of how many times you can contribute in a forum. Remember, there are different ways of contributing. You might have a suggestion or a clarification. You might have a totally different view to what's being discussed. You might be able to play the role of the outsider and think outside of the perspective of the team, or from the perspective of someone outside the team. You may just be able to contribute to say you agree with what's being discussed and here are your reasons. But whatever it is, get out of your comfort zone and make sure your voice is heard. Next slide, please. We need to accept that most of us mess up at some point, and that's fine. Be ready to fail if needed. What's important is what we take away from it as learning. What can we do better the next time? Could we pass this learning on to someone else? Constantly reflecting on where we could have done better will help us become better versions of ourselves. The other thing to keep in mind is the ability to fail fast. Don't dwell on your failures too much. Learn from it, move on. Women tend to be much harder on ourselves when we make mistakes. A lot has been said about failing fast and failing forward, but the reality is it's not actually that easy. But we need to be resilient. We need to pick ourselves up, learn from it, and move on. Here at the Home Office, I'm very lucky to have a fantastic, supportive bunch of colleagues who have my back if I make a mistake. So think about whether you've got that and whether you can help to provide that support network for others to make mistakes. Another question for you all, just to think about one for yourselves. Do you ever feel that you're a perfectionist? Research has shown time and again that women tend to lean towards perfectionism a lot more than men, and this can actually hold us back in the workplace. If we are constantly and adaptively striving for excellence, that's fine, because it allows you to accept failure, and when it happens, learn from it and quickly move on. If, however, your need to achieve excellence causes you to procrastinate or even not accept a task for fear of not doing it perfectly, that's when you need to check yourself. Allow yourself to see success in shades rather than as failure or success. Next slide, please. My next tip is to be assertive when you need to. This, again, is perhaps more relevant to women, as research has shown differences in how men and women react when faced with conflict. Societal norms have very often taught girls to be nice, and this translates into women who are not as assertive at the workplace as they could be. I know from my own experience, I've sat in meetings where sometimes I've been talked over, sometimes I've been interrupted. In what is quite a male-dominated industry, learn to cut back if needed, or at least complete what you are saying. And if you see it happening to someone else, ask them to complete what they were saying. Research done by the Myers-Briggs company using the Thomas Kilmann conflict model found that men are more likely to deal with conflict assertively, while women are more likely to deal with conflict cooperatively. Not surprisingly, people in senior positions are more likely to deal with conflict assertively. So either they're in the competing space where they're looking after their own needs, or collaborative space where they're looking after other needs as well, others' needs. Remember, a certain amount of conflict, a certain amount of tension can be healthy, as this can be the precursor to change for the better. Conflict usually happens when people think differently, and this is needed for healthy growth. So conflict isn't really a problem. It's how you deal with conflict that's important. So think about where you would put yourself in that space and try and work towards moving into that collaborative space even more. Next slide, please. Numerous studies have into the gender diversity gap have shown that the lack of role models and mentors has a big part to play with the lack of women in the IT workforce. So tip number 5 is to look for role models, look for mentors who can mirror your ambitions. Channelize your inner role model if you need to. And if mentoring is an option, consider if it can help you. At the same time, also think about whether you can be a role model or a mentor for a woman entering the tech field or a person entering the tech field. Pass the baton of your own experience on. Remember, you aren't just helping someone learn practical skills needed to do a job. You're imparting the confidence needed for them to take that next step in their journey. At the Home Office, we run very successful learner programs through which we have apprentices and interns join us every year. They say to teach is to learn twice, and it is so true. You can't really teach what you don't know. So I know that in my time mentoring, I have learned so much. So it's an absolute win-win situation. We have so many amazing female learner devs who have gone on to get roles with us, and they're absolutely thriving. Next slide, please. You don't need me to tell you that skills you need vary at each stage. When starting out in your career, your core skill set is most crucial. If you're a developer, build your technical knowledge base. If technology is forever changing, so hone in on an area where you want to close the gap, so where you want to focus. Here at the Home Office, we are very keen to ensure the developers get time to learn. We have learning portals such as Pluralsight for our devs. We have regular courses offered to us such as AWS, Azure training, etc. And we have informal setups like huddles, lunch and learn sessions. We had a Java study group running until very recently. So we are very keen to get our developers have that time to study and to learn. Once you're on comfortable ground with your core skills, start focusing on soft skills because these are critical to taking you higher. Soft skills are evaluated as equally as technical skills, if not more so in all but the most technical positions, and definitely more so as you go up the ladder. And these are the skills that are slightly harder to teach, like confidence and empathy. The good news is that in the post-pandemic world, the skills needed for a tech leader have been recalibrated. No longer do organic, self-organizing, agile teams need a boss to tell them what to do. Authoritarian leadership is definitely on its way out. Empathetic and authentic leadership, which is what we really promote in the Home Office, is in. And that is more tuned to the teams. It accepts vulnerabilities and failures in order to learn from them. Teams and organizations need leaders who will empower their teams to make the right decisions. As we slowly merge into this post-pandemic world, we know that skills like empathy, adaptability, collaboration are going to be key leadership skills needed to take things forward. So look for opportunities to work on them, collaborate with other teams, step in, resolve conflicts within your own team, reach out, network, build more bridges, build more working relationships. Next slide, please. To finish off, I'd like to discuss the ideal role. What is the ideal role? Does it even exist? We all have different drivers and motivators. And so when considering your next role, think about what it is you want to do next. Reflect on your strengths and your successes and think what you would like out of your next role. What is your main driver? What is going to make you happy logging into work or going into work every day or most days? For me, it is the value add that my teams help deliver. It's the teamwork that goes in, the desire to do things the right way. Take time to reflect and think about what it is you want to do next. And when looking for your next role, also take time to research the company alongside the role. Does it provide what you want? For example, you may want flexible or remote working. You may be looking for opportunities for formal or informal training. Does the company have opportunities for progression? What is the company's track record on diversity inclusion? Do they already have women in senior roles? That perfect role may or may not exist, but and you may not feel 100% ready when you see something that looks like it. You may not feel you have all the qualifications or the experience required. Women generally tend to apply for roles that are a safe bet when they're quite sure they meet all the criteria. Our gender tends to be quite quick to point out what we don't have rather than focusing on what we do bring. So when looking for your next role, focus on what you'd be bringing into the role. And even if the role appears to need more experience, and even if you don't meet all the qualifications, but you think you'd be able to do well in the role, go ahead and apply for it. You never know, you might get offered the role, or worst case scenario, you haven't, but now you've got practice for the role and you can get feedback on it and you can act on it. So you've got nothing to lose for, everything to play for, so go for it. Next slide, please. So just to summarize everything I've said, step out of your comfort zone, do something slightly different. Break your own mental glass ceiling, challenge yourself. Accept failure when it happens. We all mess up. It's not a big deal. Be assertive when you need to. Don't try and avoid conflict. Think about how mentors and role models can help and focus, and what skills you need at each stage in your career. Ending my talk, I just want to remind everyone that we all got here because of our own strengths and skills and by being authentic. So be true to yourself as you continue your journey. Believe in yourself. You didn't get here by accident. Imposter syndrome and everything else aside, you got here because of what you're good at. So keep doing it and keep working on it. And last but not least, as you climb up, help someone else along. We all need more fantastic people, and especially more women with us on this journey in tech. So where you can, help someone else along. Thanks everyone for listening. I will hand you over to Ruth now.
Yeah, thanks, Sumitra. I feel like I really identify with lots of things you said there, and thanks for the tips. So yeah, I'm Ruth, and I'm a software developer in Shared Application Services, which is the centralized software engineering department within the Home Office. I work in the Beddington team, which is part of the small services cluster, where we work on a variety of services. These include case management systems, reporting tools, websites and databases. Some of these are in the policing space, while some are purely internal within the Chief Technology Office. These services are all in varying states. Some are well established and have been in use for a while, and our role is to continue supporting them, working directly with the users. Others are new and still in development, but the idea is that we'll work with the user throughout the process and we'll be the ones supporting it when it's in use. We use a variety of different tech stacks. A couple of them have Java backends with Node.js front ends. There's some smaller ones that are Python Flask applications. We also make use of the gov.uk front end, which I'm sure most people will have seen at some point. This is what makes all the government services look the same. For example, you might have seen this when applying for a passport online. And it's also important to make these services accessible for everyone. For example, making sure that they're compatible with screen readers. I've been here at the Home Office for 4 months now, and I'm still early on in my career, having graduated from uni less than 3 years ago. This is my first official software developer job. So when asked if I could talk about my journey to get here, I didn't know quite how much I'd have to say, but I hope you find it interesting. Ever since I was at primary school, my favourite subjects were maths and science. I think it was a given that I'd end up in STEM later in my life. My dad was a computing teacher, so I knew a fair bit about what it might entail. My school offered computing as a GCSE, which my dad encouraged me to take. And I think I was in the second year that it was ever offered in the UK. The summer in the middle of my GCSEs, I took part in Young Rewired State's Festival of Code, which was a week-long hackathon for young people under the age of 18. And I spent 4 days at the Mozilla headquarters in London, working in a team to develop an application which had to use at least one piece of open government data. Companies all over the country supported teams, and at the weekend, all the teams travelled to Birmingham to present their applications. And I really enjoyed meeting other people my age with similar interests and seeing how you might turn your interest in programming into a career one day. At school, like with the computing course, I enjoyed the mix of the theory and the practical programming. I thought it was fun to design and make small programs, which would include different basic concepts such as reading and writing files. But I also found the theory interesting, like learning the basics of binary, simple algorithms for sorting numbers. Beforehand, I thought it was pretty magic how computers worked, but studying it made me realize it's like a logical thing. It's really complex, like I don't fully understand, but it's logical. It was one of my favorite subjects. I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to take it as an A-level, and I actually ended up changing schools for sixth form because mine didn't offer it. I did maths, further maths, computing and physics at A-level, and despite having thought I wanted to do computer science at university for years, out of the blue, I decided I wanted to do electronic engineering when it actually came down to applying. I said to myself it was so I could do a bit of all my A-levels in a degree. It'd be quite mathematical, but I'd still get to do some programming and my favourite parts of physics. But looking back, I think the angsty teenager in me just didn't want to do the same thing as my dad. So I ended up going to the University of York to do a Master's of Engineering in Electronic Engineering with Nanotechnology. It's a bit of a mouthful. And I really enjoyed having quite a variety of modules. Some were quite practical and hands-on, but as I went through the years, I did notice that I was picking more and more modules that were linked to computer science. Throughout my whole education, there were always fewer women than men. Specifically in my degree, like it decreased as the years went on. When I graduated after 4 years, in my year of 30 or 40 students, I was the only female. A high proportion graduated after 3 years instead of the 4 that I did. So I wasn't the only female for the whole time, but like this was only 3 years ago. Hand on my heart, I've never felt like I was an odd one out. I did always feel like I had equal opportunities with my male peers, and they were all lovely and never treated me differently. However, at the ages where girls might be choosing to study computer science or other STEM subjects, it can be daunting knowing that you might be in the minority. But I think that this is changing. I mentioned that I took part in the Festival of Code when I was 15. This was in the summer of 2012, and I was looking this up recently. I saw that the year I attended, only 5% of the participants were female, but 3 years later, this increased to 30%. There's still not 50-50 equality, but I've seen improvements in my lifetime, even with just the years below me at university. After graduating, I got a job as a graduate electronic engineer at the Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, which is a part of the Ministry of Defence. I was working on a range of projects, not really knowing where my interest lay. Some were quite hands-on and practical, whilst others involved using specialist software for modelling. About 6 months after I started, the pandemic hit and we were all working from home. So I was given different work that I could do from home because I couldn't go in and access the labs. Having done a Python course when I initially started, like I let people know that I really enjoyed that, and I was put on a project to create an internal management system for use within my team. I loved it. I was properly programming again and learning more about different architectures. Sending requests between different APIs had been like a foreign concept to me until then. And while there, I got the opportunity to go on secondment to the NHS for 4 months to develop tools modelling the vaccine rollout, which were used by key decision makers in government. It was such an incredible experience and I loved doing it. My first day happened to be the day that the first vaccine was administered, which meant that a lot of my new colleagues were quite emotional as they'd been working towards this for months. And being able to see that level of commitment and pride was such a good start to those 4 months. And it made me realise that I wanted to do software development full time. And when I went back to my normal job, I just wasn't nearly as excited about the electronics as I was about the coding. I liked the fact that the products you worked on had a much faster turnaround, so you could more easily see the impact of the work that you were doing. And it also made me realise that I definitely wanted to work somewhere where I cared about the software that I was working on. The thing that I enjoy most about coding, ironically, is solving bugs. It can be so frustrating seeing a red screen full of error messages, but I love the satisfaction that comes from fixing it. Granted, I probably banged my head against the wall for a while, but I also find that time loses its sense of meaning a bit. You're like beavering away at a problem and suddenly hours have passed and it's time to log off. And I think having a job where you can be that motivated to fix or complete something is what I want for the rest of my career. With bugs as well, you always come out having learned something. The time that you spend scouring through Stack Overflow pages is a beneficial learning process. You end up looking in depth into bits of code that you took for granted and you never really knew what they actually did. Coding, though, is such a vague word. The work that software developers do varies a lot. You could ask someone with the same job title as me what they work on and they'd say something completely different. There's so many different programming languages and areas that you can work on right here at the Home Office. There's so much scope for you to try different things to see if you like them. Like when I started here, I'd done a tiny bit of Java before, but most of my knowledge was in Python. And a couple of the services that my team look after are developed in Python, but most of them use Java and Node.js, which were completely new for me. And because of this, I've been able to try something new and learn something different in the time I've been here. And if it turns out that this isn't the area I want to be working in, then there's always scope for me to move to a different team and try something else. And to enable me to learn something completely new, the Home Office supplies resources and time to support me. Everyone here has access to a Pluralsight account, which has loads of videos and courses on different programming languages and frameworks at a range of levels, which I found really useful. I got stuck in looking at some Spring Framework and Java fundamentals, but also like brushing up on my own current Python Flask skills. The other thing that I think really adds to being a developer is being able to do all the techie stuff like designing and building databases, but for such a variety of uses and needs. You get to see the range of work that the Home Office does by working on their services. Like when working on something for the police to simplify their lives, it's nice knowing that you're freeing up some of their time so they can work on the big things. Having exclusively worked in the public sector, at the Ministry of Defence, the NHS and the Home Office, seeing the positive effect your work does, however indirectly, is the best bit. I take pride in knowing that the work and the organisation I work for help the millions of people that live in the UK. And I think it's beneficial to look at the bigger picture of how your day-to-day work fits in. And I think working at the Home Office is a good place to be proud of that. So why exactly did I choose the Home Office once I decided that I wanted to move into a purely software-based role? As I mentioned, I think working in the public sector is a really rewarding experience. And compared to other government departments, I think they're trying to develop a software community here more than other places. This whole area within digital is growing significantly, and I wanted to be a part of it from early on, while the structure and the processes are still being shaped. And I think a lot of what's happening here is being done for the first time within government, so it's exciting seeing how it develops. There's also visibly females at all levels here. Sumitra, who's spoken already, is a principal engineer. My team's lead engineer is female. And I think it's important to work somewhere where you can see your career progressing and that there aren't just men in more senior roles to you. That's not saying that there's an equal gender split, but I think you'd struggle to find that in any technology department. But yeah, that's why I think people should come and apply and join us. So I'm now going to hand over to Dan and Amra, who are going to talk about the digital data and tech recruitment process here at the Home Office.
Hello. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, Amra.
Fantastic. Thank you, Greg. Sorry, my video hasn't come up yet. Sorry, just waiting for it to pop up. Well, I'll just keep speaking. Hopefully you'll see me shortly. Thank you very much, Ruth. That was a really good talk, and it was really good insight into sort of the female perspective of working in government and what that's like. So thank you for sharing that. So today, Daniel Wilson and I am going to be talking about applying for a job at the Home Office. So I am one of the tech leads here, and Daniel Wilson is the other tech lead. Daniel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hello all. Thank you very much for having us. My name's Daniel Wilson, one of the recruitment leads that recruits software engineers and DevOps and technical people across the whole of the country for the Home Office.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Daniel. So this is going to be a breakdown. What we're going to do, and we're going to show you on our next slide, is how to effectively apply for a role at the Home Office. So if you could please move on to the next slide. Thank you very much. So we've got this divided into 3 sections. So the first one is where to find jobs at the Home Office. And the second part will be the application process. And the final part will be how the interview process works here at the Home Office. So we're going to focus on the first part, which is where to find jobs. And I've noticed a lot of people have been speaking on the chat and are very keen and eager to see what jobs we have live. So could we share the next slide, please? Thank you. So this is our civil service job search. So this is the place where you will find all of our roles, and the URL address is civilservicejobs.service.gov.uk. I will happily share that in the chat if you need to see that again. And the way in which this will work is essentially when you visit this site, you will see all of the roles within the civil service, but to see our roles in particular, you will have to go under the job role section, which is under digital, and you'd have to select under the organisation section, the Home Office. And what this will do will show you all of the roles that we have within the DDAP function, which is the digital data and technology function, which Greg mentioned before. And so this is a place where you can find all our roles. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention is you'll probably be aware if you've used these sort of job sites before, is you can sign up for job alerts. And job alerts is a really good way to ensure that you're always up to date as to when we advertise a role. It notifies you immediately and is a really good place and a resource to find positions that are live as they're coming through. So I definitely recommend, if you set yourself up, do that for any roles that you're interested in for job alerts. So could we move on to the next slide? Wonderful. So something that we are really passionate about is our social media presence. And this page is actually our LinkedIn page, which is called LinkedIn Life. And what this does is essentially is a great place to show you why the Home Office is a great place to work, what the culture is like here. It really is a kind of place to visit to just see, just to give you a great idea of, you know, what we're doing here and what exciting things we have coming up. We're always sharing events. We're always sharing our blogs and articles on this page. And as you can see, there's always information here to keep you in the know as to what's going on. Myself and Daniel use LinkedIn regularly. We advertise roles and we direct source, and we share all of these information on this particular website as well. So please, if you do get an opportunity, please have a look at our LinkedIn careers page as well. So can we move on to the next slide? Fantastic. So as you are all probably aware, and if you use social media, we are very much on Twitter. We have two main Twitter accounts, which is the Home Office DDAP, which is at HO Digital. And we also have the Digital Careers Gov account, which is Digital Careers and UK Government at DigiCareersGov. And again, one of the great places to find our roles, information on what we're doing, what's happening, you know, where perhaps if we have events coming up, this is the place to find it. And we are very much, we all very much engage with Twitter, and we hope that we can see you and engage with you on there as well. Dan, did you want to add anything to the Twitter slide?
Not other than I'm not really a Twitter person myself, but I know a lot of tech people and people in general like using Twitter, and it's a really good place to get information about the work that we do, not just our jobs. So it's just a good resource and good thing to be signed up for.
Perfect. Thank you. And we can move on to the next slide. So one of the great things is that we partner and work and have great relationships with the first company at the top, which is Hackajob. And we like to advertise our roles on various job boards and platforms. And this includes Slack, Indeed, Manchester Digital, Croydon Digital, Sheffield Digital, Women in Technology in particular, and also the Black Young Professionals Network. Because one of the things that we really want to sort of stress and highlight is that we are always looking for a more diverse network, and we really want to encourage people to apply from all walks of life, and in particular, you know, women and people of colour. And we're very keen on basically getting a diverse pool of candidates. So if you are on any of these networks, then, you know, this is where you'll find us as well. So yeah, happy to move on to the next slide. So now I'm going to hand you on to Dan, who is going to talk to you about the application process and what that means.
Fantastic, thanks, Amra. So the application process to apply for a job at the Home Office may look slightly different from other organisations that you've looked at. So this is an opportunity for us to demystify that process, give you some information, some hints and tips, so that you can, you know, show the best version of yourself that you can, and hopefully we'll see many of you working with us. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So at a high level, this is our process. We'll advertise a job on those platforms that Amra mentioned. On those adverts, we advertise a closing date. So obviously worth looking at that, otherwise you miss the opportunity to apply. From there, we do what's called a sift, and that's effectively having a look at your application to see if you have the skills that we require to bring you through to the next stage. So it's a structured process that we do to make sure we're being fair and consistent across all of the applicants. And yeah, we call it a sift. From there, we then put people through a technical exercise. It's done online, there's no time limit. And, you know, really, we're not just looking to see that people can complete a technical task. We're also looking to see that people have good coding practices, for example, or good ways of working. So, you know, we're really trying to assess people's real world skills and give you the opportunity to, you know, show what you can do. From there, there'll be an interview. Now, an interview at Home Office generally covers experience and technical questions. And then if all goes well, we'll be sending you over a job offer. So that's what the process looks like. If you go to the next slide. So talking about the application process itself, you'll notice we're not asking for you to upload a CV to when you apply for a job. We ask you to apply with your employment history, previous skills and experience, and a personal statement. So effectively all of the information that you'd have in your CV, but we ask you to put those into our application form rather than uploading a CV. So the reason why we do that is because when you've applied for a role at the Home Office, your application is anonymized. And for us, that's really important because it means that we can take out any information that's not necessary, any personal information, anything that might cause some form of bias or unconscious bias from people who are reviewing your application. and all they can look at is those things that we've mentioned, the things that actually translate your capability to do the job. So it's one of the interventions we have in place to really improve or to try and improve the diversity of people that we're looking to employ within the Home Office. So if that looks slightly different, not to worry, it's just important that, you know, the information that you've got in your CV is put into that application form so that we can make a clear determination on if you have the experience to progress further. If you could go to the next slide. So the next hint and tip, always tailor your application to the role you're applying for. Now, this may seem extremely obvious, but you'd be very surprised as a recruiter the amount of weird and wonderful applications I've seen in the past. Of recent times, I think I've seen people who haven't really put any detail except a job title and not even like dates of employment. You know, there's lots of interesting weird things that people do when they apply, but I just recommend putting as much information in your application as possible so that you're giving us evidence for us to assess you against. And also just having a look at the job description, having a look at the expectations, the responsibilities, and making sure that the things that you've done are clearly evidenced in your application. And we'd always recommend maybe 10 or 15 minutes just going through the information you're supplying. And if you need to amend it or change it or improve it, you know, it will really help us make sure you have the capability to get to the next step. So it may seem obvious, but it's something which we feel is, you know, quite important to highlight. You can go to the next slide. So we've talked about the application process. You've now understand how to do that. Hopefully some of you will have some success at getting through that process. Next, I'll talk to you about interviews at the Home Office. If you can go to the next slide. So our interviews and the interview questions we asked are underpinned by the skills framework for the information age framework, which is a capability framework, which we use to align people within the Home Office against certain roles. So this on the slide here is the Sfia skills that are required for a developer role within the Home Office. So the thing circled in red. So some of you, when you look at our adverts, you might be confused what that is. But as I said, it's a capability framework. It's online, it's in the public domain. So if you are selected for an interview, we'd recommend you just having a brief look at the Sfia skills framework and having a look at, you know, what is expected for each of those levels against each of those skills. And that will really put it into perspective what we need from you for the role when you're applying, when you're going through an interview. In addition, you know, the job description itself, the main responsibilities, the skills and experience we require, they're also very big hints and tips in terms of what we might be discussing in an interview. So we just recommend when preparing, making sure you have a look at the things that we're talking about in the job description, having a look at the Sfia skills, and just getting familiar with, you know, what we require, so that, you know, you can give the best answers possible. You can go to the next slide. And yeah, if you're not sure, have some questions on the adverts, myself and Amra, our contact details are on the adverts on civil service jobs. If you need to get in touch with me or Amra, feel free. In addition, if you want to add us on LinkedIn and have some questions you'd like to ask us through that channel, you know, we're both on LinkedIn as well, and we'll be happy to have a chat at some point. So, you know, we're happy and friendly and willing to help if we can. We can go to the next slide, and I think I'll pass you back to Amra.
Fantastic. So I think this is the slide that everyone's been waiting for. It's whether or not we're hiring, and the good news is we are. If you could move on to the next slide. So these are the roles that we have on offer at the moment. We are we're basically across 4 locations across the UK. Our main offices are in Croydon, Glasgow, Manchester and Sheffield. And the roles are all of different levels as well. So these range from, we're heavily into DevOps, development roles, front end, back end. We have automation roles. And so there are a number of different roles at different levels. So there is something for everyone. So we just wanted to let you know that we're constantly hiring, we're constantly looking. So as Dan said, please do reach out to us should a role be of interest. If the role isn't there, then it might be advertised later. So please reach out to us and we will let you know. But we look forward to seeing lots of applications, hopefully after this presentation. So we'll move on to the next slide now. So I think this is a slide about questions and feedback, but we are also going to move into, after this, basically a slide of our benefits. This is because we do offer some amazing benefits that Dan and I are always shouting about when we're talking to candidates to show why it's so great to work at the Home Office. And this video itself will be hearing from voices that currently work here at the Home Office. So you'll be able to hear all the amazing benefits that we have. Thank you very much as well. And we look forward to any questions you may have later on. Next slide, please.
There is a quick video to show here actually before I do my thank you. Hackajob, if you've got the URL for the benefits video.
Yes, we will share this very, very shortly.
Thank you.
I will share now.
When you join the Home Office, you'll make a real difference every day and you'll have access to a range of amazing employee benefits.
You'll receive a competitive starting salary,
along with a civil service pension with employer contribution rates of at least 26.6%.
You may have flexible working options to suit your work-life balance.
And 25 days annual leave on appointment, rising with service.
As well as 8 days public holidays.
1 day for the Queen's birthday.
26 weeks maternity, adoption or shared parental leave at full pay.
Followed by 13 weeks statutory pay and a further 13 weeks unpaid.
Maternity and adoption support leave, also known as paternity leave, of 2 weeks full pay.
Up to 5 days paid leave for volunteering.
Along with support and study leave for accredited learning and development relevant to your role.
To help get to your workplace, you can apply for a season ticket loan.
Or a cycle to work loan.
You can even apply for a rental deposit loan.
To support your well-being, you'll have access to staff support networks,
an employee assistance program,
and discounted gym memberships.
You'll also have access to employee discounts from a variety of retailers, as well as staff recognition schemes, including retail vouchers.
And the opportunity to make tax-free donations to charity through payroll giving.
Amazing. Wow. Even I want to apply for a role here. So thank you all so much to all of the speakers who have just given us such an insight into what life is like working at the Home Office, and also the various roles that are also on offer. So now, as promised, we will be moving into the Q&A section of this event. So firstly, we would like to ask the question, how has the Home Office supported you with a community community. And this is directed to any of the speakers. How has the Home Office supported you with the community? Would anybody like to take this one?
I'm leaving my mic open for a minute to see if anyone jumps in. Otherwise, I'm happy to take it. I can talk about community at the Home Office quite a bit. All right, I'll go for it. Okay, so as the head of role for software engineering and DevOps here, one of the things that sits under my remit, my responsibility, is building up the community. So we have, as I mentioned when I was kind of doing my talk earlier, quite a lot of people here that work in the development profession. We have community events that run at least monthly, although on smaller scales, teams do their own things as well. So we generally try and do things like having external speakers come in and talk to us about things like Ansible. We've had GitLab come in and talk to us about the features and functionality that are available in GitLab that we might not be using. We use Slack for communications in addition to Teams. And in Slack, we like to share a lot of stuff that goes on in the developer kind of world as well. So we have a developers channel on Slack where we have everybody in there. So I'm quite keen in pushing a lot of community stuff and looking at big picture and across as many people as possible. On the kind of team level scale though, and depending on sometimes location, the offices and the hubs in which people work also organize their own things as well. So for example, if you're based in Sheffield, they like to have Sheffield Wednesdays, and they might do lunch and learn sessions where they'll talk about things. Croydon do similar, Manchester do similar as well. So there's lots of different things at lots of different levels. So you've got your team stuff, you've got your office stuff, and then there's the stuff that kind of works across the entire Home Office for all the developers as well. So lots of community related things. I can see Sumitra nodding and her microphone has just been enabled. So I think Sumitra's going to jump in.
I am going to jump in, yeah. Just to add to stuff. I mean, there's so that Greg's mentioned. There's just so much we do to support everyone as a community. So besides everything that Greg's already mentioned, that's quite a lot. We are very keen to get people, feeling part of a wider community. So, for example, the lunch and learn sessions, they're not for example, only senior developers to present. No, it's just if you've joined us, you've got something cool you'd like to talk about, we'd love to hear it. And it doesn't even have to be very specific to what you're working on. It could be something that you're interested in as a side hobby. We'd still love to get you to be part of that community and just talk to others about it. And you'll be surprised how many others might be interested in it and they'll just join in. And then you've got this little group. The other thing that we do is we have clusters as well. So for example, if we have teams that are working on Java APIs, we might have a cluster of Java API devs and they would lean on each other if they had a doubt, if they were working on, I don't know, we recently had a shout out for someone working on Elasticsearch, because we needed someone from another team to lean in. So that's the sort of thing you can do when you collaborate and just ask for help. So yes, definitely a supportive dev community feel. As Greg said, we've got the Sheffield huddles, we've got SAS Croydon meetups, but that doesn't mean that someone from Sheffield can't drop into the SAS Croydon ones. We would still welcome anyone. So a very large community, and we're trying to make it even more well-knit.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Greg and Sumitra. And even as you were just speaking about the lunch and learn, it actually brings us quite nicely onto our next question, which is there anywhere that you would recommend to start networking? So I think lunch and learn maybe is one of them, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts as well.
I can take that. I think I did add in a sort of reply, but yes, it's things like lunch and learns, meetups. We kind of encourage people to come out and talk, and there are people who don't like to do that necessarily. So people might not be as extroverted as wanting to just turn up and talk. That's fine as well. As long as you turn up and you're happy to just chat with 2 people, 3 people, it's still networking. You're still building those relationships across teams, and that can stand you in good stead. So we've got loads of forums, just like we've mentioned, all the meetups and the huddles and the lunch and learns. And if you don't want to do any of that and you're really introverted, Slack. You can still post lots of things, and they don't even have to be all work related. We have a very funny channel on animals and pets, and people just find funny pictures of their animals and put it up there. Why not? It's still building those working relationships.
we've actually just purchased enterprise grid tier of Slack. And one of the bits of work that I'm working on is designing what our enterprise grid might look like. And I'm making sure that we have a cats channel and a dogs channel that stretches across all of the home office, so that we can make sure that people are not missing out on nice pet pictures.
That's awesome. I wonder if the cats channel and dogs channel are separate, or are they together?
There's a cross-government Slack workspace as well, and they have separate channels. And in fact, I was only having a conversation yesterday because I don't know, this sounds like I don't do much other stuff. I was having a conversation about it yesterday, and the cats channel is actually far more active than the dogs channel. Whether that says anything about the favorite pets in government, who knows?
That's hilarious. So maybe we can move on to some questions around the projects. So it would be lovely to hear from Ruth, perhaps. What types of projects are you currently working on?
Yeah, so I'm working on a bit of a range. My team probably is a good example because we've got quite a lot of different ones. They're quite small, but there's lots. So there's just some like kind of websites that are just kind of for informational purposes, doing some kind of like case management, databasey stuff internally for the police. What else? Some stuff kind of just for the Chief Technology Office within the Home Office, kind of getting a bunch of data together, displaying graphs, kind of so that they know, visualizing stuff. Yeah.
Awesome and super exciting, and I'm sure many people will be itching to join your team very soon. Perhaps we can move on to Sumitra. So what is your favourite project that you've worked on thus far at the Home Office?
Oh, that's a very tricky one. I'm not sure I could answer that really. I think I've got some fantastic teams, and I've worked on some fantastic projects. I think, to be honest, each project has its own unique challenges. It presents its own unique opportunities for learning, and it's the teams. I think the teams just make the project. What makes a project fun is not just the learning or the tech stack. It's also who you work with. So I don't think I could pick one. But if I were to mention a couple, we have an intelligence platform that we support, and it's been live for 6 years, and it provides quite a crucial bit of infrastructure for internal users. The team is fantastic. Last year we successfully did our 100th release, which was a major shout out because the platform has been going steady and strong for so long. I have a fantastic frameworks team. We built so many services. There are 10 live services already built using that framework. I've got teams that do APIs that connect systems. That we have so many systems within the Home Office. We need them all to talk and to share information. So we have teams that utilize Java backend APIs and even Kafka. So they use Kafka event streaming in order to be able to use the publish subscribe model. So there's a lot of interesting stuff we do. I'm sorry, I don't think I could pick one favorite one. They're all my favorites.
Some of the scale at which we work as well is unusual, that most people wouldn't get to work on. So kind of touching back upon what I was saying about where I worked in the private sector, I worked for a company whose their kind of primary target and where they're aiming to sell was to the NHS. So we had a few hundred NHS trusts, which meant tens of thousands of users, maybe hundreds of thousands of users. Whereas here we have the potential to serve the entire country. So, depending on the systems that you work on, your user base could be 60 million, 70 million. It could be more if it's an international system. So some of the scale of the opportunities here as well as having lots of technology and lots of different products and projects is the scale as well, because we work, there's some internal services, as Ruth said, where you might have its internal services for colleagues that work around the Home Office, but then you might be building stuff that sits on gov.uk with the black design system and the crown and stuff that almost everybody will have seen something that sits on gov.uk in their life. So there's quite an opportunity of working at big scale as well here.
That's incredible. Thank you all for sharing as well. It seems as though the work is really, really gratifying as well. Imagine being able to reach the whole nation. So now I have another question actually, and this one is more so to do with being a newcomer. So this is open to everyone to answer. What about newcomers with no past experience or educational background in the IT industry, but have the passion to have a career in the field? Do they have a chance?
I've turned my mic off, but again, I'll give it a second if anyone else wants to jump in so everyone doesn't have to hear from me. If not, I'll go.
I can jump in very quickly, and I would say if you don't have, if you haven't worked in tech before, consider one of the learner routes. We are, we definitely want people to join us, and if they haven't got that experience in tech, we're happy to build up that capability. So you would join as an associate dev. You would work on around 2 projects. It could be more than 2 perhaps. You would also get the opportunity to work on a charity project to build those skills that you don't get on those 2 projects. And you will be able to build your skills while with us. And then at the end of that, you'll be able to apply for a permanent role with us. So there are routes in, and they're definitely worth considering. I'll hand over to Craig.
Yeah, we have quite a few different, we call it emerging talent. So kind of the lower entry level routes for people who might not have the experience or the background. So we have something called the Digital Career Development Program. We have apprenticeships. So just casting my mind back to what has been launched recently, we actually have just closed a campaign for DevOps apprentices. We've had quite a few applicants that we're sifting through those at the moment. We have got due to go live quite soon, I think, although I can't remember exactly when off the top of my head. Now I'm on the spot. Digital Career Development Program for software development will be going out soon. So keep an eye on the resources that Dan and Amra have mentioned. So, Twitter, LinkedIn, civil service job site, because there's lots of stuff coming out. And just personally, talking on education background and degrees and stuff, I always kind of like to cover this bit because I actually have no formal education in anything software development related. So I've been doing it for a while now, and I probably tick that all relevant industry experience box now. But I didn't do computer science. I haven't done any software engineering kind of stuff. I have no formal education in it. I started teaching myself when I was a teenager. Actually, maybe about 12 or 13. Yeah. So I'm self-taught. I've done a load of computer science stuff through places like Stanford University, actually. So I used to do mobile development prior to joining the Home Office, and Stanford University publish all their computer science iOS development courses. So I did a lot of their CS 193p courses. But I guess my point is that we don't actually mandate formal education requirements. Now, there's a slight proviso on that. Obviously, if you're going to go and apply for a senior software development position and you can't evidence that you've got at least some experience in it, you might struggle. But we don't mandate educational requirements at all for any of the roles. I am currently the head of software engineering, and my experience is entirely self-taught. So that's always something I always like to touch upon at this bit as well, just in case people are looking. I've seen a few comments in the chat about people thinking about career switches, or they're working in somewhat related IT industries at the moment, but not necessarily software development. I would just say that don't let that guide you away or convince you not to apply.
Thank you so much. It's really good to know actually that it's not just one route in actually, but whichever one fits people best, that they can still have a role here at the Home Office as well. So we are going to move on to some of the questions around the recruitment process. I know we are actually itching to know. So one of the questions that was asked was, please can you reiterate the assessed skills from the SFIA framework, please? So, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll take you through this, and if Greg needs to add anything in addition, he can do. So as mentioned in the presentation, all of our technical roles are underpinned by that Sfia framework. So as we mentioned in the presentation, a developer role, there were 6 Sfia skills that underpin that role, and they're all at level 4 on the advert. So it's worth just having a look at the framework to understand what is expected at that level. And then in the interview, your questions you'll be asked will be asked based on those Sfia skills. So that's the reason why we recommend people have a look at that. And yeah, the Sfia framework itself is just a really good capability framework that we use that then helps us assess where people are within their career in the Home Office as well. So once you join, as you start to build your capability and progress and learn, you know, your capability within that framework progresses, and that means that your pay will increase, the opportunities to progress to more senior roles increase. So it's quite fundamental to how we actually structure our software engineering community. But when it comes to the interview itself, it's worth just looking at it from the perspective of getting a perspective of the type of questions we might ask on which topics and just helping you prepare.
I think the only, I'm not meeting up, I know, the only thing I would is add to that is to try and, so we have something internally here called recruitment and retention allowance, which is a kind of a skills-based payment, and that's also aligned to Sfia. Our application round has just been open this year, so I've just been reviewing lots and lots of applications for people who are applying for a higher tier of RRA, and the Sfia skill breakdowns, having never used these before outside of government, when I've been working in the private sector, I really like them because it's a good standard way to evidence tech skills. So kind of having done recruitment in private sector and recruitment in lots of other organizations before here, we'd never used the Sfia breakdowns, and actually that means grading and recording and kind of assessing people's applications and interviews are somewhat fluffy and down to the person who is looking at it. Whereas because we use this here, and actually quite a lot of government departments are using it, it allows us to actually evidence and write something that is aligned perfectly to, for example, you know, one of the skills that we look at is data management. So you can actually target that and say, you know, my experience in data management is this, you know, I had this big data set, I did this normalization, I did this transformation, I did that kind of things. And then, you know, systems integration and build, for example, is one of the other ones of the 6 that Dan mentioned. So that, you know, that could be things about what innovative CI/CD pipelines have you set up, or how have you integrated system 1 to system 2 when they've never spoken before, and those kinds of things. So when we're asking interview questions, the questions that get asked, the interviewer also will say, you know, this is against programming and software development, so can you give me an example of? So always try and bear those in mind with the kind of the application process as well.
Excellent, thank you. Another question we've received is, can someone outside of the UK apply for these roles?
So they can, but it's not as straightforward as just going ahead and applying. There are rules around the people that can apply and work in the Home Office. We have 2 things we need to look at. One are the Nationality Rules, and then the second thing is the ability to get security clearance. And so only people who are from a European background or someone who comes from a Commonwealth country can work in the civil service. Now, there are some exceptions to that, which are quite complicated around family members and opening freedom of movement. So if you have some questions around that, you can contact us directly. But those nationality requirements are on gov.uk if you need to look at those. And then when it comes to the ability to work in the Home Office in the software engineering community, every developer needs to get SC clearance. And to get SC clearance, when we do our clearance checks, we need to be able to do checks based on evidence from the last 5 years when you've been in the UK. So even if maybe recently you've been abroad, as long as there is, you know, a large amount of time that we can assess where you've been in the country, where we can assess, you know, what you've been up to, we can then give you SC clearance. So it's not one rule fits all. It's very much case by case, and it's quite complicated, but hopefully that gives you an insight.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. And because of time, we will have one last question, but I'd love to hear from everybody here today. What is it that you enjoy most about working for the Home Office? So I will open the floor, but it would be great to hear from everyone.
I'll start first. I haven't really spoken. I joined the Home Office not long ago, I joined because I really like the team that I work in, and I love what we're doing in terms of, I suppose, this very sort of, I think we were quite ahead in terms of other government departments, in terms of recruiting people and what we're doing in terms of our technology. So for me, I find the team that I work with is the thing that kind of draws me in.
I can go next. So I think for me, it's that opportunity to help people on a large scale. And I think, you know, as a recruiter, my job is helping build the organization, build a community. And just when you have a look at the impact that that community has on public services, it's quite rewarding. And I think just because of the scale and the amount of challenge to sort of grow a community, you know, within the Home Office, it's an exciting place to be. And then also, I just like all the people, like everyone's quite friendly. It's not hierarchical. You have a lot of autonomy. So I think those are the things that I really enjoy about my role in the Home Office.
I can go next. Because it's kind of my first software purely based job, I really like the fact that there's so much stuff going on, that you can get involved in lots of different things. Like, I've started doing something that I wasn't doing 5-6 months ago, and I'm enjoying it, but maybe in like 6 months, a year, I want to try something else, and I could, you know, go on to a different project and do something. I think there's a lot of stuff going on that you can definitely find something that you'll enjoy doing. Yeah.
I can go next. I think I've already typed it in there, but yeah, I think the main thing is that the variety of projects, you're not going to get bored. There's just so much stuff happening, and there's so much to be done. There's no chance you're going to just feel that you're not doing something that is adding value. So it's adding that value, as everyone before has said, and the teams, the people you work with, they're just they're fantastic. I can genuinely say there's such a pleasure to work with. I've worked in the private sector, I've worked in the public sector before, and yeah, I think the people working with are the friendliest bunch. They just want to do the right thing, and we're all trying to do it together. So that's the biggest thing for me.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. So we now have a really nice handover to Greg, who will close this for us. But just before we do that, we will also be putting in a link to a very short survey into the chat. So if you could please fill that out, that would be super, super helpful. But yes, I'll pass back over to Greg.
Thanks everyone who has given a nice intro to the Home Office, and thanks everybody for attending as well. Turnout's been great. Thanks for taking the time to signing up. Thanks for taking the time for actually attending and listening to us as well. Hopefully you found it useful. Hopefully you found it interesting. Hopefully we've got through the vast majority of questions. I can see a few outstanding that I'm furiously typing response to on the side as I've been doing these previous questions. I've kind of touched upon most of the things I wanted to say and wrap up already as I was going through these questions, but I just kind of wanted to talk about, screen sharing just come up. It's just taken away from my screen. There we go. I just wanted to kind of touch upon the importance of the work that we do here. I don't normally do the whole corporate lines. My old marketing teams used to not like me from my private sector jobs, but the tagline that we have here about how it, in fact, it's in the bottom right hand corner now. It matters more here. It really does. It's a really truthful statement. It really sums up everything that we do here. You know, like I said, some of the work that we do here touches upon the entire of the UK, and in a lot of instances, more than just the UK. So it's a lot bigger scale than a lot of people will work on. And the shared application services transformation that I mentioned earlier really does mean there's limitless possibilities for where people could work as well. Even if you end up on something where you're unfamiliar with the technology and you don't like it, there are opportunities in other teams. We have lots of different things going on, and it could take you into all sorts of different places. So you can find out more about the Home Office and the jobs that we've got on all the various platforms that Dan and Amra were talking about. We've got our Hackajob profile page where you can see our blogs, our podcasts, which was also with Sumitra as well, actually, and the videos that we've done there. Otherwise, check out our LinkedIn. We've got the UK Home Office careers page. Follow us on there. And leave us some feedback on the survey that we've just had posted in there as well. We want to know what you thought of the event today so that we can continue to improve and make them more beneficial in the future. Hope to hear from you all soon. Thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks all, and thank you everyone for coming out to this wonderful event in partnership with the Home Office. We hope to hear from you all soon. Please don't forget to fill out the feedback form in the chat. But yes, other than that, I would love to wish everybody a really wonderful afternoon.